There we go. NASDAQ cruising higher. It's now up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. So we didn't get a pullback today. I thought there would be some, profit taking into the weekend, but didn't really see that. So maybe we just continue to climb into this Fed meeting next week, or Fed decision, I should say, on the rates. IBB was a little bit wild today. We got that news out of Biogen, and it looked like that was going to help give us a nice follow day through. I mean, it did follow through a little bit today, but got up into all these moving averages and found some real resistance there. Oh, MDVX caught my attention because of this headline right here. A1, Sorrento Therapeutics reports 5.9 passive stake in Medovex Corporation. That's what got my attention. So IBB came up into this moving average, found some resistance, pulled back. And we talked about it this morning. These sectors that have been beaten up, people could be looking to take those losses against their capital gains heading into the end of the year. So wouldn't be totally shocked if we were to continue to see weakness in the beaten up sectors. So I actually think we probably need to stay on the sidelines, maybe at least closer to the end of the year. But that, like I said, that what was it, AVN? Or what was the one? No, I got it written down here. AZN. That had some news today and had a nice little bounce. I really did want to take this for my long-term hold account. But now it's got this gap on the daily to fill. So, maybe this pulls back and fills this gap down to around 26 bucks or so. I think I probably would like to take it there, or start to take a position somewhere in that area. I didn't want to take it on this gap up today, even though it appeared to be pretty good news. Let's take a look at the IWM. So, did pierce the upper Bollinger Band yesterday. Now we've got a candle almost completely out of the upper Bollinger Band, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. Is it, do we have to have a dramatic drop? No, we don't. We don't have to have a dramatic pullback, but it's certainly looking like it's getting tired, right? And maybe we need to consolidate a little bit, work our way back into the Bollinger Band, maybe pull back and test this high at 134, somewhere around there, see if that holds a support. But does look as though it could use a break after this week's run. Let's take a look at IYT. Same thing. Had a little bit of a pop this morning, closed in the lower portion of this candle, working its way back into the Bollinger Band. Do we have to have a dramatic drop? We do not have to have a dramatic drop, but does need to absorb this move, does need to consolidate a bit. Wouldn't be surprised if we were to, slowly pull back, or low volume pullback, drift back down to this 164 area. Let's look at gold. So, been saying that it is a bear flag. It looks like a bear flag, but I will also say this. I mean, it's trying to hold this 110 for whatever reason. It is trying to hold on to 110. I mean, all the moving averages are still sloping down. The 8 EMA is still sloping down. So just not a lot of encouraging stuff there technically. GDX, GDXJ, pull back. Let's take a look at JNUG and Nugget. I mean, these still look like bear flag formations. JNUG, right, pulled back to the 650, or looks like it wants to come back down and test that $6 range, well within the Bollinger Band. So, I mean, you know, if this does break, it's got some room to fall. They're probably going to wind up actually doing a reverse split in these things pretty soon, I would imagine. And that'll probably be about the time that they're ready to bounce. Usually when they do the reverse split, that's when they get some kind of bounce. But not good looking action in JNUG or Nugget. But that, like I said, could change next week. But typically, I've got to think here. Typically, so if the Fed is hawkish, that would mean stronger dollar. That would mean weaker gold, weaker miners, right? And if the Fed is dovish, then that would mean stronger gold, weaker dollar. And I just don't see the Fed as being dovish next week. I just really don't see that happening. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But, you know, if they raise rates and, you know, they maybe start jawboning about, you know, raising rates 2 or 3 or 4 times next year, then that to me would be pretty hawkish. And then you would think that we would get more strength in the dollar and that we would get some weakness in gold. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But we had that little bit of a pullback in the dollar, and now we're right back up to testing highs again. But not a lot of volume today. There wasn't a lot of conviction behind this move. So we'll see what happens next week. Let's see what else we got going on here. Let's look at, oh no, let's look at the, so, you know, look, we kind of targeted financials as a possibility for a bounce in this FAZ if financials were to roll over. It didn't happen. You know, so if the Fed, so again, next week, if the Fed comes out and they do raise the rates, that's actually good for the banks. And then if they talk really hawkish, like multiple rate hikes, that's also good for the banks. And we talked about yesterday how, you know, just because we're out of the lower Bollinger Band doesn't mean that we have to have this big snapback. It could just work its way back into the Bollinger Band, bear flag, and then have another move lower, right? And that's kind of what looks like is happening, right? Just like FAS could just consolidate, work its way sideways, get back into the Bollinger Band, flag out for another move higher. So we did not get any kind of a snapback in the financials. And if the Fed is very hawkish, I don't see how we would get a snapback in that bearish ETF of the financials. So financials could still wind up being strong. Maybe we just consolidate into the Fed meeting, see what the Fed says, and then we get a determination of which way the financials are going to go. But still looking pretty darn strong. All right, let's look at the SMH. So after, you know, a nice 4-day run and breakout over 2, we actually pulled back a little bit today. So maybe we consolidate a bit here, drift back down to 71 bucks and the 8 EMA. But you know, SMH still overall looks pretty darn good, right? Could this be a double top? It could be. We'll see come next week. but SMH actually still overall looks really good. S&P 500. So now we've got another candle almost completely out of the upper Bollinger Band, kind of looking a little parabolic here. We'll see what happens next week, if we get any kind of a pullback there, or if it works its way back into the Bollinger Band. Let me see here. We haven't looked at the T2107, T2108 in a while. This is the percentage of stocks above 200-day moving average. It's not in nosebleed area. Remember, 70 or above is, when things are getting real stretched, you look to lock in profits or potentially get short. The percentage of stocks above their 40-day is getting up there, right? It is getting into the over 70. That's when you should be starting to be cautious. But look, this thing can get up into the 80s. I mean, look back here. It got up into the 80s for a while and consolidated. I mean, it stayed up there for a while. So, but it's still, I mean, if nothing else, caution, right? Just caution. Not suggesting that, the end of times are near, but it is time probably to be somewhat cautious. Okay, OPTT just reported earnings. That got a little bit of a bounce today because of one of the appointments that Trump made, because she is like pro whatever the heck it is they do, the big ocean turbine things for energy. She's like pro that. So this got a little bounce off of that, but doesn't look like their earnings were all that great. So probably need to be careful there. All right, let's take a look at volatility. There still isn't any. This could change next week, right? This could change next week if the markets finally do decide to roll over or pull back. Let's see, UVXY. But, we don't need to be jumping into these things right now until we have a confirmation, right? Until we have a nice big spike with some huge volume in a market that is rolling over. And, I just don't see that that's happening right now. There just doesn't appear to be a whole lot of fear out there at all, which is, at some point, fear will come back, promise you. Aerospace defense actually held up pretty well today, right on top of the 8 EMA. Maybe it's going to consolidate here for a bit. We'll see. We already talked about biotech. Home builders pulled a little bit today, right? But we talked about how it's piercing the upper Bollinger Band. Maybe it works its way back into the Bollinger Band, flags out a little bit. Don't have to have a big dramatic drop. This materials just continues to grind higher. I mean, we do have a candle piercing right there, but continuing to grind higher, right at an area of potential price resistance here. But man, look at that. I mean, there's like buying every day. A lot of green down here, right? And that's just a reflection of potential inflation, right? Because, all right, we raise the rates and then, we start doing a huge infrastructure build out. The numbers they're throwing around are pretty staggering, $1 trillion or whatever. So this just continues to grind higher. But at some point, we're going to need to pull back or at least consolidate a little bit. I would think. We don't have to. We don't have to do anything, right? But right at, is this all-time highs? Yes, all-time highs. Flirting with this. This is, big area. So this is a pretty big area right here. Let's call it 52 bucks, right? If it takes out 52 on a big candle spike, that could be like, that could be a blow off top situation, but it still looks really strong. XLE grinding higher. Oil actually, oh, now speaking of that, let's look at oil. Oil held up fairly well today. And I did see that there were some people asking about DWTI and UWTI, and apparently, according to Eric and somebody else in the room, it's DWT and UWT now are the new symbols. But USO, a little bit of a bounce, and then just really didn't do a whole lot, just kind of a little indecision candle there. But energy still looks fairly good. That was a huge rig count addition this week, which kind of leads you to think that the more rigs that are out there, the more supply, and then maybe lower prices. So I don't know. But that was a big, big build in rig counts. But grinding higher, right? Pierced the upper Bollinger Band, worked the way back in, and now grinding higher. Lower volume. I will say this. Descending volume as it grinds higher, right? So less and less conviction as this moves higher. XLF, we already talked about financials. That's a pretty tight looking little flag there, right? On industrials. Pretty nice, working its way back in. So utilities bumping. So look, we're right back up to the short-term trend line on utilities. Last time we came up and tagged it, we wound up pulling back. Here we are again, about to tag it, or actually I think we are tagging it. We'll see what happens on Monday. If we actually take this out, we still are below the 200-day moving average, below the 100 EMA. So let's see, what do we got? Healthcare. Wow, healthcare had a little bounce over that trend line, huh? So that is kind of interesting. All the, well, not all of them. The financial shows that I watch are very much, almost daily, I hear about healthcare being the beaten down sector. That's the sector they want to position for 2017. So kind of interesting that this got a little bounce today. What did BMY do today? Oh, shit. Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to get that gap fill, does it? That was a pretty nice little candle in BMY today. Right back up into this 57 bucks. Maybe a continuation of BMY next week. That was a nice little pop. Oh, OPTT is responding positively to this earnings report. Maybe that was better than expected. They had 169,000 in revenue versus prior year quarter where they had 494,000 in revenue. Maybe their guidance is good. I don't know. Pulled back and no volume. All right. Sorry, didn't mean to get off track here. So healthcare, that was a pretty interesting little bounce. We'll see if there's some follow through in healthcare names next week. Consumer discretionary continues to look pretty strong after this big candle, flagging out a little bit here. Metals and mining pulled back a little bit. So what was it that was on Fast Money last night? One of the chartists was talking about FCX. You know, with the strength of copper, and FCX was one that to play over the next couple of weeks, and so it doesn't look like it did a whole lot today. I mean, it does have a pretty interesting little formation, pretty thick stock, 1.2 billion shares in the float. But you know, if FCX goes and if copper continues to climb, the one that I'm watching is this one, PRQ. It's also a copper play, right? And it is kind of in an interesting area. But I've got this up on my list. I am watching it pretty much every day. Looking for it maybe to pull back down to this 325 area or 330. And then if it breaks out, you know, if FCX breaks out, this one likely would follow. I mean, it's had a nice little bounce right here. It would have been nice to get it on this pullback the first time to about 325. But now it's coming up into this trend line, so maybe it comes back down here, tests again, and get that tighten up, you know, kind of wedge pattern. But this one I think is worth keeping an eye on. In sympathy with FCX if it moves. XOP, oil exploration, just working its way back into the Bollinger Band. And then we got the last one, retail, which we pierced the upper Bollinger Band and working our way back in as we test this price resistance right here, about 48.50 or so. But next week could be interesting. Right, something's going to give in TRQ. So if FCX breaks to the upside, I would think that this would break to the upside as well. We'll see what happens. Let's see if we've got anything. Blues Travelers. Blues Travelers, Brendan Hill on marijuana. Big players will wait to enter the industry. Well, yeah, no kidding. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Newstar authorizes a 30 million share buyback. EWS. Okay. Remember, we've talked about these share buybacks. They don't make me want to go out and buy this stock. It's below the 200-day moving average. Just had a pretty high volume sell-off, it looks like. Looks like it also broke this little trend line right here. Right? So now it's going to have this to deal with as potential resistance. Only 24 million shares in the float. Don't know anything about this company. Nice that they put that little press release out, but doesn't mean that they have to go out and buy those shares tomorrow. So so this thing, ACIA, oh, there we go. So this reported some news right at the close. So this is or did they report this news right at the close? No, they might have reported that earlier, huh? Because it already had a nice little spike. Okay, so ACIU, companies to watch. Alzheimer therapy, phase 2 trials, approved outcome. Okay, so it looks like some pretty decent news on this thing. ACIU. So it actually reported that right at the end of the day when it hit. So this thing had a nice little gap up, flagged out all day, and then right at the end of the day had this huge volume pop. And it looks like it's actually holding on to it after markets. This could be one to watch for either a red to green move or potential continuation, gap and go on ACIU this next week. So I'll write this down right now. And that's it. I don't see any other headlines coming out. It's Friday afternoon, so I mean, Friday afternoon. Here's the news that's coming out. The Brendan Hill, the famed drummer of Blues Traveler, is going to give his opinions on medical marijuana. I mean, they're struggling for news flow right now, right? All right. So look, here's the deal. Nice bullish week. Going to have an interesting week next week with the Fed. Could we, are we a little bit overbought on some of these things, some of these sectors? We are. Does that mean we have to have a dramatic fall? It does not. We could just consolidate, get a little choppy action. Probably we'll have some choppy action leading into the Fed decision, right? So let's see, you know what, while we're here, let's take a look and see what's coming up next week for the economic indicator or economic data. We'll take a look at that really quick here. And then maybe we'll take a look at, see what's coming up for earnings next week too. But everybody's already buying their 20,000 Dow 20,000 hats. So let's see, we've got on Monday, consumer spending measure. We've got Dudley speaking. We've got Evans speaking. We've got PMI, services, ISM, non-manufacturing, labor market conditions. And then we have James Bullard speaking. So 3 Fed members speaking. Then on Tuesday, we got international trade, productivity, and costs, Gallup, Red Book, factory orders. All right, so then on, well, where am I missing it, man? Oh, here we go. No. 30-year bond announcement. I thought the Fed is next week, isn't it? Am I missing it somewhere here? It's usually a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not next week. Oh, no, wait. Federal Reserve statement, is that what this is right here? Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. I could have swore it was next week. Is it? Oh, it's this week. Am I looking at this week? Hold on. Hold on. Way to go, man. Way to go. All right. Let's yeah. So I'm a little slow. All right. Yeah. I thought I was losing my mind here. So can I go to the next week or what? What's the story? I want to go to next week. Um, Probably not going to let me. All right. I got to wait till tomorrow on this. Thanks, A1. You saved me, man, because I thought I was losing it for a minute here. So pay no attention to what I just said about all this stuff. Oh, I'm glad it's Friday. All right. Well, look, it apparently, unless I can. Oh, wait. Here we go. Duh. All right. Got it all figured out. Here we go. We got FOMC meeting begins on Tuesday, and then we get the statement here. There we go. Yep, I got it. Begins on Tuesday, and then we get the statement actually on Wednesday. And this is also, so there is also FOMC forecasts, and then there's the Fed chair press conference. So, it's definitely going to be a big day. We got NFIB Small Business Optimism Index. We got Red Book, retail sales before the Fed, industrial production before the Fed, IEA petroleum status before the Fed, and mortgage applications before the Fed. So, and then we got jobless claims, CPI on Thursday, Empire State Manufacturing, quadruple witching next Friday. So that usually adds to some volatility potentially. Then we got Jeffrey Lacker speaking on Friday. So, yeah, it does look like a fun week towards the end of the week. But look, we don't really have a whole lot going on right here, right? For the first couple of days. So, like I said, wouldn't be a big shocker if it were kind of just choppy sideways action Monday and Tuesday heading into the announcement. So for now, still bullish, but expecting some things to slow down a bit into next week. So that's it. That's all I got. I'll be back Sunday with stocks to watch, but for you pro members, you do not have to come watch because I'm going to do an expanded list of stocks to watch for you guys anyway, so you don't have to come to the live session. Anybody else, if you like what I do here, come check us out over at alphawolftrading.com or email me at tim@alphawolftrading.com. Great group of people there. All right. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys either Sunday morning or I'll see you next week.